The original Plants vs. Zombies is known for a lot of things, but most distinctly in my opinion, it's known for the art style. Most games in 2009, the year of Plants vs. Zombies released, were still trying to capture realism, but with the limited capabilities they had at the time. Plants vs. Zombies stood out as a colorful and silly alternative, not focused on capturing realism. This is mainly because of one man, Rich Werner. At the time, Sexy Action Cool, PopCap, the company in charge of making the game, was really small. The team behind Plants vs. Zombies, not including QA testers or management, was less than a dozen people. There was George Fan, who was in charge of the game design, Todd Semple, who did all the programming, Laura Shigihara, who made the legendary soundtrack to the game and all the sound effects, Enrique Quartz, the background artist, thus why the lawns kinda look like they're in a different style, Matt Holmberg, the UI artist in charge of how the menus looked, Stefan Notley, who was in charge of the writing, because we needed a whole different person just to write Crazy Dave's dialogue. I'm just joking. Good for you, Stefan. And Rich Werner, the main artist behind Plants vs. Zombies. Anything that wasn't a background or part of the UI, he made. That includes 49 plants, 28 zombies, 1 human, and a snail. He also created the cool loading screens seen when loading up the game, and he did help with the backgrounds. What I'm getting at is, this guy did a lot. In an interview by GameCritics.com, Rich Werner said, "Early PopCap was a small studio of 20-something totally creative and skilled individuals. I'll be using this article for most of my information, but I also use some other sources you can check out in the description." But how did he get into the position of creating art for Plants vs. Zombies? What were his inspirations? And where is he now? These are the questions I will answer in the first episode of Behind the Art. But before we get into it, this video is sponsored by the Join button. You can join this channel for as little as $2 a month for some exclusive benefits like sneak peeks and member-only polls for future videos. But if you don't want to, you can always just subscribe and like the video. Either way, thanks for even watching. Rich Werner has always had a strong passion for art since he was a kid. He loved to draw in his room or on his porch, and he particularly loved Disney movies because of their fluid movements and character designs. But he also enjoyed shows like Looney Tunes, The Muppets, and he even dabbled in comics, noting how he loved Sam Keith and Jim Lee. By the time he was 10, he knew that he wanted to work in the arts. Specifically, he wanted to be an animator for Disney. He got accepted into a performing arts junior high, and then to a performing arts high school, where he could focus more on his artistic endeavors. After high school, he got an associate's degree in graphic design at the Art Institute of Seattle in 2000. Here he got to refine his skills as an illustrator. After art school, he had gone through many regular jobs. He worked in places like a movie theater, pet store, pizza place, and you get the gist. Here are the rest of his jobs though, if you're curious. He finally ended up getting his first art gig at a small studio named Interactive Imagination. This is how he got introduced to the world of video games. He worked on backgrounds for Imagination, a Game Boy Color game, before being able to do the illustrations for the actual card game. One of Rich Werner's philosophies is to make art that can be universal to all ages. As he said himself, something that a 5-year-old isn't scared of and an 80-year-old lady would also dig, but appeal to teenagers as well. He worked at Imagination Interactive until 2002 when he unfortunately ended up getting laid off. This provided the most turbulent time for his artistic career. After he was laid off, he was unable to find any other full-time gigs and had to take freelance work. This also happened at one of the worst times because he got laid off 2 weeks before he had his first child. For a while, his wife even had to go back to work. Luckily, he was able to find a job at Griptonite Games as a background artist. He worked on a Robots tie-in game, a series of Unfortunate Events tie-in game, a Harry Potter tie-in game, and Shrek Super Slam. Okay, maybe these aren't the most revolutionary and amazing games, but they pay the bills. He worked here from 2002 to 2005 before leaving to work at McGraw Hill. Yes, that McGraw Hill. While he was working for McGraw Hill, he got a call from one of his friends, Matt Holmberg, about an amazing place he got hired at, and that they were looking for artists and he should apply ASAP. This amazing place that was described so fondly was PopCap. The first game Rich worked on while at PopCap was Tasmania Deluxe. He provided additional art for the game while his previously mentioned friend, Matt Holmberg, was the main artist. Rich Werner worked for PopCap for a while, from 2005 to 2012 to be exact. Some notable games he worked on were Peggle Extreme and Amazing Adventures, The Forgotten Adventures. While he was in between projects, he heard about a smaller game that a smaller branch of PopCap was working on, and that needed an artist. After checking the game out, he really enjoyed it and reached out. But what was this game? Well, I think you can all take a guess. It was Lawn of the Dead, also known as Plants vs. Zombies, I think. And as we know, this would become his biggest game to date. Rich described his experiences at PopCap very fondly. He said that they weren't afraid of failure and actually encouraged trying new things and experimentation, where there was no clock watching and you weren't just surviving shift to shift. They also had an epic gaming room with arcade machines and video game systems, as well as free food and drinks. Okay, what the heck, this actually sounds like the best job ever. Hire me. But they can't hire me because all good things must come to an end, and those arcade machines couldn't pay for themselves. So PopCap ended up looking for a company to buy them, eventually going with EA. This buyout of PopCap caused many changes, and if you want to know more specifics about it, I recommend you watch this amazing video by Dinnerade. But basically, after the buyout, most of the team from the original Plants vs. Zombies stopped working at PopCap. The last time they worked on the franchise was for some consulting for Plants vs. Zombies 2. Before he stopped working at PopCap, he also worked on Bejeweled 3, Bejeweled Classic, and Peggle 2. Skipping forward a bit, in 2018, Rich had somewhat of a reunion with George Fan, the game designer for Plants vs. Zombies, while they worked on Octogeddon together, the premiere game of All Yes Good, a game studio created by George Fan. While not as successful as Plants vs. Zombies, Octogeddon still received some generally positive reviews. Rich noted that working on Octogeddon was amazing, as it was one of the first times he had complete creative control over what he created and how he created it. Recently, Rich has also been doing commissions on his website and even live streaming making them on his Twitch. Researching Rich Werner has really been a journey. It has taught me that no matter what, if you're passionate about something, and do everything you can to learn and practice it, you can find a career. It may not be immediately that you find success, and you may have some tribulation beforehand, but if you keep moving forward, you will reach the end of the tunnel. Here's a quote from Rich Werner, which I think is similar to what I was saying. I'm not sure how successful I am. I feel pretty lucky to be doing what I love for a living and at the same time to be able to support my family. I think if you're passionate about something, then just never stop doing it. I just focused on art in general and knew that someday I would be able to do it for a living. Give yourself a goal and don't stop trying until you achieve it. Basically, just don't give up. If it doesn't work out at first, just keep trying, and I think you can get anywhere if you want. Maybe it won't be a full-time gig, or maybe not quite in the exact position you wanted at first, but all these paths are intertwined and eventually they will intersect and you will get what you want out of it. Thank you to Mini-Me, Rainbow Slayer, and Mick Beals for being members. Anything is possible, and as always,